Okay. Video is now recording. First, I just want to thank you all for taking some time out of your day to join the Department of Corrections Military Advisory Committee in this episode, I should say, our informational webinar that we have selected some unique military and or veteran resources from across the state. And today we are joined by Erik and Lindell from the Michigan Veterans Trust Fund. So we're excited for them to get started. But before we do so, I just want to remind everybody in attendance that this meeting is being recorded and it will be shared to the Department of Corrections YouTube page at a later date for our staff who's unable to participate live due to shift work and whatnot for their accommodations. Also, if you are an individual who needs to use closed captioning, that is a feature that is available. So if you go down to the very bottom of the Zoom page, it does give you an option to select closed captioning if you do need that. For those who are going to be viewing at a later date, that's a feature that is available through YouTube as well. So Erik, thank you again for agreeing to participate and to share a little bit about the Michigan Veterans Trust Fund. I know you have a PowerPoint presentation to help lead everyone through the different eligibility requirements and what you all do. So the floor is yours.
All righty, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm glad to be able to share this resource with your team in the Department of Corrections. Hopefully this will be able to be a good tool for both possibly the staff as well as possibly any of the inmates that may also be veterans. So I am going to share my screen. Not going to do fully death by PowerPoint, but we just got a small one to be able to talk about here. If it works. Can everyone see the PowerPoint?
Yep, looks good.
All righty. All right, yep, so we are the Michigan Veterans Trust Fund. Once again, my name is Erik Napieralski, and I am the partnerships analyst for the trust fund. So the establishment of the Michigan Veterans Trust Fund was back in 1946. The Michigan legislature allocated $50 million into a trust to be to assist the returning World War II veterans and their dependents. The trust earns its money from the earnings that is invested in the stock market. Since 1946, we've been able to approve more than 648,000 emergency grants and distributed more than $125 million in grants. So it's been quite successful over the time period. We are the only organization like this in the United States in regards to being a government entity helping veterans. So the mission of the Michigan Veterans Trust Fund is to assist wartime and also the 65 plus peacetime era veterans who are experiencing their temporary financial emergency or hardship caused by the unforeseen situation. So we are currently operating two programs within the trust fund. One is the emergency grant program in itself, which is set up by the law. And the eligibility for that is they do have to be a Michigan resident, have a honorable or general under honorable discharge on their DD-214. They have to meet one of the criteria that can apply of the four, have the 180 days of the active wartime period. The initial training, active duty training, does not qualify towards that 180 days for those who are reserve or National Guard members. If the veteran had less than 180 days, but have 1 day of wartime service and they were separated because of a medical or mental disability incurred in the line of duty, we also qualify that. Or if they have 180 days of active duty with a Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal, a Navy or Marine Corps Expeditionary Medal. The other way to possibly qualify is if one of the above qualifications is met and they are the unremarried spouse or dependent child of a veteran. That dependent child would mean that the child was deemed to be a dependent, a permanent dependent by the VA before the age of 18, whether maybe they are deemed medically or mentally disabled and thus a permanent dependent of the veteran. The other program that we do operate is the 65 plus peacetime grants. So this program is for those individuals who are 65 or older. They served on active duty during a peacetime for the 180 days. Also, once again, the initial training for the Reserve and National Guard members does not qualify. They have to be discharged under honorable conditions, whether that's honorable or general under honorable conditions. The surviving spouses of the eligible veterans may also apply. But the big difference between these two programs is the application requests are limited to items such as utilities and shelter. So this would be those utility bills, rent, mortgage, those types of bills in the home, as well as including the home repairs in that assistance request. I'll kind of pause right there to see if anyone has any questions regarding the eligibility for either the emergency grant program or the 65 plus peacetime program. Hearing none, go forward. So on the next slide, we'll kind of talk about the emergent need. As we spoke previously, the emergent need and that temporary hardship is what we look at. So the key things that for the criteria are the unforeseen hardship, the temporary nature of the hardship, and also the ability for the grant to resolve the hardship. As you can kind of see, the short little definitions for those: unforeseen, outside of reasonable expectations; the temporary, meaning a defined endpoint is in sight; and then resolve. Will the applicant be able to maintain their financial needs once assisted? So one thing about the unforeseen aspects of what we look at, if you're a homeowner and your roof is at 25 years old, or your furnace is at 25 years old, we know as homeowners items like those will go out and they need to be replaced. So those don't really qualify as unforeseen, but what we do look at is what happened in their life that maybe they are not able to afford those repairs in this moment. Maybe a spouse or a child got sick and there were large medical costs. Maybe there was a stint of unemployment while they were trying to save up for those, and the money had to be shifted. Maybe they're not able to pay the mortgage that month because maybe they were laid off, or maybe they were unemployed and they weren't able to make that payment and they're trying to move forward during that time. So while some things may be foreseen in our life, the program also looks to see what happened in the applicant's life that may not have been foreseen that altered their ability to afford those bills, afford those repairs, items like that. So let's talk about kind of what we will look at in regards to types of assistance. We mentioned those monthly home bills, your rent, your mortgage, your utilities. Obviously those are covered under there. The home repairs we look at for the health and safety, not upgrades to the home. We're not putting in all new windows into people's homes. To get those utility costs lowered. There are other programs out there for that. So we look at those types of things that are needed for health and safety. The well went out in the home. Maybe there are a couple of windows in the home, though, that are on that main level and are needed for that safe egress. We can take a look at something like that. The water softener within the home, the roof, electrical repairs type things. We also do consider items like auto repairs to the home, auto repairs, to the vehicle. One of the main things that we look for is that the vehicle's kind of needed for employment. What we're not in out there doing is, applicant has 3 cars at home and they have one that they're using for their daily driver, and the other 2 are project vehicles or classic cars. We're not in the business of repairing those. We would look at that main type of need. Just as with those home repairs, we only consider those for primary residence. Same thing along with those rent and mortgage utilities. We're not going to be looking at paying the mortgage or property taxes on a vacation home or a rental home. We do only look at the primary residence homes. One thing that's actually not on here is we do look at such as medical related needs, such as dental. Many veterans have hardships with dental as they get older, as those costs are not often covered by things like Social Security and Medicare, Medicaid, or the VA. So we do consider those types of items as long as they are needed for the health and safety. We do not do routine checkups, but we will do things like dentures or assisting in maybe a couple of teeth need to be pulled. So kind of covering that. If there's no questions right off the bat regarding those, I'll just kind of pause for a second, and then we'll look at next what we won't consider.
Erik, you do have one question asking if the trust fund will pay for doctor bills.
So we will only look at a doctor bill that has already been, so if it's a bill at that point, obviously the service has already been rendered. The only way that we consider bills that have already had the service rendered is if there are a garnishment of wages that the veteran is being taken to court and they're now having their wages garnished for that bill. Obviously, that can get into hardships, in affording those utilities, the rent, the food in the home. The other way we consider those is if there is a denial of service. For example, if a veteran is getting, say, mental health services and their psychiatrist tells them, I'm not going to keep providing services unless this bill is caught up. And if that doctor is at that point and has provided that statement, then we will look to pay those bills that have already been incurred, as to we be able to keep that ongoing service going forward.
And then to follow up with not only just the doctor specific one, but all of the bills, does the trust fund provide those payments directly to the veteran, or do they provide them to, say, the the rental, like the business that owns the rental unit or the person who's going to be doing the car repairs, like what does
Good
that?
question. Yep, we pay directly to the provider of that service or holder of that bill. No money goes directly to the applicants themselves.
Thank you for clarifying that.
No problem. All right. No other follow-ups. We will go on to, let's talk about what we won't consider, which is often one of the biggest things, so we can help people understand what we're able to do or not to do and steer them in other directions if needed. So it looks like a big list. It's not quite the biggest. So we do not do things like personal or business income taxes, responsibility fees or restitutions, as well as things related to civil and criminal proceedings. You know, if you get a ticket, you know, that's your fault. You have to pay restitution for some type of criminality or other type of things. You know, that's not something we are going to do. We do not pay credit card bills or other bills for products or services that have already been received. The veteran comes in, gets their car repaired, and then you know, puts it on their credit card, and then their credit card bill comes in, and a month later they're not able to pay it. You know, that's not what we're here for. Spousal child support payments are not something we do. Legal fees, besides the exception of court fees related to an eviction or a foreclosure. We do not do down payments or closing costs on for vehicles or for home purchases. Uh, we also do not do cable TV bills that are not part of a subscription package that includes the internet. Obviously, things like the internet are needed for work or for maybe a child's schooling. So we do look at those. But if it's a standalone cable TV bill, we don't look to pay that. Um, uh, as said previously, home repairs not related to the primary residence of the veteran or the other bills within those homes. Medical bills not resulting in denial of service or garnishment. Auto registration or driver's license fees. We're not able to pay those. And then the last three things shown are our dollar cap limits. So utility bills over 3,500. And when I say utility bills, that's just for one standalone bill. You know, if there are multiple bills that are adding up to 3,500, that's fine. In regards to, you know, electric, gas, and water, and they all combine over 35, that's fine. Automotive requests over $5,000, a housing request over 25,000, and medical or dental requests over 5,000. One thing that I didn't mention is kind of how the administrative part of the Michigan Veterans Trust Fund works. The county committees are the deciding factor of the applications. Each county has their way to take their own applications, and a body that votes on those local applications. The county committee is limited to the amount of $3,500. Anything over that amount, if a county is looking to assist, then they are required to recommend approval, and that recommended application goes up to the board of trustees to they then decide on those dollar amounts over $3,500. And that rule also applies for if the veteran is a repetitive applicant that got help in the previous fiscal year, then the board of trustees is also the deciding and vote on if those repetitive applications are to be granted assistance. Any questions regarding this, what items the Michigan Veterans Trust Fund may or may not consider?
So with us working for the Department of Corrections, and I believe a few of the individuals on here work in like the probation and parole realm as well. If there was a veteran who was incarcerated, and is their spouse eligible to apply for the trust fund?
Yes, yes. The veteran being incarcerated does not disqualify them from the program. We have assisted a few spouses or their dependents in the past and as long as that incarcerated veteran qualifies, then that unremarried spouse or the minor dependents also qualify. Maybe the veteran was single and they have a minor child that's now being cared after by grandma or grandpa or another family member. That household, say they fall behind themselves on taking in the child, and there's extra costs related to that, and maybe they fall behind on the mortgage or utility bills. We could actually look to assist in something like that in order to keep that child in that child would be able to possibly receive a grant um, to be able to help with those things, just as if that child was with the other parent, that parent would be able to apply to keep that household going, whether it was rent or utilities, something like that. That can help especially if that incarcerated veteran is about to return to society. If they can return to a provided home or something like that, then that is a great thing to be able to do for all involved.
Yeah, that is wonderful. Um, for the items where you say you cannot support requests over a certain dollar amount, has the trust fund, or is it common practice for you all to maybe work with other entities? So if, for example, you have a auto repair that needs to occur and it's $5,500, do you all work with other community-based organizations, nonprofits, to help come up with the difference for the items items that go over your cap?
Yes. Yep. One of the big ones that we work with, say for if it's housing related for repair, is we work beside Habitat for Humanity. We also, one of our biggest partnerships are the counties themselves. Many of the counties have a program, whether it's the Soldiers and Sailors Relief Program, or they have other millages that build a veterans related relief program. But we also partnership quite often with those in order to come up with those other dollar amounts. Volunteers of America, United Way, DHHS, any other organizations that are possibly providing other funds, then we look to try and pool those funds if the veteran is not able, or the applicant is not able to come up with that remaining amount themselves.
Great, thank you.
No problem. So let's move on to the next one. The big thing is, what if someone does need this assistance? How do they contact the Michigan Veterans Trust Fund? Well, the two primary ways. The main primary way is if a veteran calls the Michigan Veterans Resource Center, that 1-800-MICHVET number. The Resource Center is able to triage what the veteran's need is and see if the trust fund is that good fit, or maybe it's other programs, or maybe it's a combination. At that point, the Resource Center will help guide the applicant to either the county of their residence where they can apply, or if it's one of our regional counties where the veteran would apply directly with our office. But either way, the resource center puts them in touch with the county or person to which they need to apply through. Um, the other thing, as I mentioned, is that if we're not able to assist, then the 1-800-MISHVET can provide those resources for the veteran or the applicant that we might not be able to assist with. So our primary route that we tell applicants to is to contact that 1-800-MISHVET number, and that will get them to the entities that can help them through the trust fund or through other means. So another question is, how might someone volunteer for the Michigan Veterans Trust Fund? So all of our county committees are a volunteer basis. So if someone wants, has that free time, that ability, they could be the people that are helping decide those local applications for their community. And if they're interested in ever serving with the Michigan Veterans Trust Fund, they can contact either our state office to inquire about those openings, or they can contact their county Veterans Service Office and see if there are any openings also within that county as for the eligibility. In order to be on a Michigan Veterans Trust Fund county committee, you do have to qualify for the main Michigan Veterans Trust Fund emergency grant, which is that 180 days of the active wartime service, the honorable discharge, or one of those other substitutes. One thing that I do want to kind of talk about is some of the other things that the Michigan Veterans Trust Fund does, because we don't just provide for the hardship grants. One of the things that we've moved into is our partnerships. We have our partnerships in regards to habitat, in which we are providing funding for those projects. But we also do a simplified application process that Habitat is able to come directly to us with their applications and kind of skip some of our paperwork, which has helped many veterans. One of our current partnerships is Warrior Rising, which is an entrepreneurial training program for veterans who want to become self-employed, start their own businesses. Maybe it's a part-time business while being employed. Their entrepreneurial programs are going to be starting here in Michigan in the fall of 2024, and they provide virtual education, training, and mentorship, as well as they build a greater foothold within Michigan. They will be creating what they call their platoons, where they will put other veteran entrepreneurs in touch with local and area related other veteran entrepreneurs, so they can network and work off of each other to try and help build each other's knowledge of being an entrepreneur and their businesses. Many veterans start businesses that are in coexisting or related fields that can help one another. Maybe one veteran starting a restaurant while another is starting a website business, and you can combine them in those platoons so they can help provide each other with those resources to connect with each other. One of our other great partnerships that we offer is Green Path Financial Wellness. Green Path has been around since the 1960s, and they provide financial budgeting courses and financial wellness coaching. The great thing about this, how we interact with them, is we pay for a dedicated line to GreenPath for veterans to access their services. And the majority of their services are free to cost, such as the personal and family budgeting, the housing counseling, credit card report coaching. Some of their things do cost, such as like the student debt counseling and their debt management. But usually the money that people are able to save each month from Green Path renegotiating their interest fees in payments, that they are able to afford that monthly cost finance. Green Path does not provide funds for them to pay off their debt. They set up a plan and renegotiate fees and payments on behalf of the veterans to get those down to a payable and logical amounts that hopefully within 3 to 5 years, they are completely debt free and out of those hardships using their own finances. And on that note, if there are any last questions to go over, then we can take a look at those questions and get those answered.
Yep, there is one question. So it was from a few slides back, but it has to do with veterans who are interested in applying for the trust fund. What type of documentation do you all need to process that goes into their applications?
Yep, good question. So when they go to fill out the application, they will have to bring a copy of the DD-214 showing that they do qualify, has to show that honorable and general honorable discharge on it. And they'll also need to provide the proof of the income that comes into the home and proof of the monthly bills that are leaving the home. If it is a spouse applying, say it's a surviving spouse, or maybe the spouse is incarcerated, we would need to be able to see that marriage certificate. If, say, it's a minor, someone's applying, helping a minor apply because the veteran is either deceased or maybe incarcerated, we would have to see that birth certificate showing the veteran on the being legally responsible for that child. I don't know, maybe the veteran had actually adopted the child and now they are legally responsible for that child. Then that then that child dependent would be able to qualify also. So we'd be if they're asking for home repairs or auto repairs or something related to the medical, we do require 2 estimates for those needs. Whether it's the furnace, a roof, dentures, maybe they need something like a ramp put on the home, or maybe for some reason they're usually able to, but they're not able to afford like eyeglasses or something like that. Then we require those estimates to also accompany with their needed documents.
So if the veteran or the spouse does not have a physical copy or digital copy of their DD-214, the discharge paperwork, do you all help them gain access to that?
So we in ourselves do not, but we work alongside the 1-800-MISHVET, the Michigan Veterans Resource Center. They have access to all of the DD-214s that are registered within the state of Michigan. If they're not able to access the DD-214, then through the state archives, then they can work with them to get that from the National Archives. There are also other ways that maybe that DD-214 cannot be accessed, that a veteran can get qualifying documents, such off of e-benefits, to get that statement of service showing how long they served and that it was the honorable or general under honorable discharge, that we could also possibly consider as a qualifying documentation.
And then we just got another question in, how long does the application process take?
So that kind of depends on what the amount being requested is and where the veteran and how fast the veteran can provide those. On average, we have about from a start to finish and payment included, about a 7 to 10 days. The biggest hurdle that we often see is the veteran not providing the documents as needed. But normal process that we see from start to finish is 7 to 10 days. If it is over that $3,500 amount and it has to go in front of the Board of Trustees, that can take a little bit longer. But if it's a very time sensitive need, we do have the ability to do interim decisions with the Board of Trustees. But usually 7 to 10 days is what we see.
Great, thank you. If anybody else has any last minute questions, feel free and drop them in the chat. And then I know Lindell's been very quiet this entire time. Do you have anything you would like to share just to give people a few moments to add any questions if they have anything, Lindell?
I don't think I have anything else to add. I think Erik did a great job there. We've been around, as it said at the beginning, we've been around for 78 years now with a trust fund, and we continuing to serve veterans. The emergency grant program and assisting veterans that are in that financial emergency is our priority, will always be our priority. Last year, we gave out $1.5 million in individual grants for veterans in having a financial emergency. So we're pretty active. It's a great program. It's one of there's really few, if any, other programs like it in the country. Michigan is pretty unique. They were able to set this up in World War II. At the end of World War II, and it's a fantastic benefit for Michigan veterans. So please, if you know someone who's facing a financial emergency like that, we'd like the opportunity to help out.
No, that's wonderful. And I don't see any other questions at this time. So Erik and Lindell, we greatly appreciate you all taking some time out of your day to share a little bit about the Michigan Veterans Trust Fund with us. Any last words for you, Erik? Nope. All right. Well, for everybody in attendance, definitely appreciate your participation and any questions that you had shared, as well as a few folks dropped some other information in the chat. So definitely appreciated. For anybody who happens to be viewing this later on the Department of Corrections YouTube page, just keep in mind that 1-800-MICHVET phone number that Erik had shared out, because it's a really good starting point to not only his and Lindell's organization and their benefits that they provide, but numerous other items that can be throughout the state of Michigan as well. So again, thank you. Appreciate everybody and have a great rest of your week.